Okay, here we are, Matthew Russell Lee, Inner City Press, here at the Southern District of New York Courthouse. Today, Monday, January 27th, 2025. Now we're heading in. Now we put out a book over the weekend. It's Fintech Fraudster, U.S. versus Charlie Javice. It's a case that's coming to trial on February 18th involving Frank and J.P. Morgan Chase buying it absurdly without even checking whether the email addresses were real that they were buying to college student applicants. But the book analogizes it to a number of other fraud cases that we've covered here. One, Trevor Milton, but also Elizabeth Holmes, brought out on the West Coast. And today we're actually going to be covering the sentencing of Bill Huang's co-worker, co-executive, Halligan, in the Archegos one. That's another case where instead of the analogy being to entrepreneur fraud, it's to big banks as victims. But he was convicted. Bill Huang was convicted and sentenced to 18 years. So we'll see what Charlie Javice, she's rolling the dice. She's going to go to trial and we're going to cover it. And you can find the book, Fintech Fraud, an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. So check them out. Meanwhile, Sean Combs' docket, on Friday, his lawyers filed a detailed brief saying that Investigator 1, the one that went into his cell in the MDC, was actually acting as an agent of the prosecution and therefore should have to turn over a lot of information, and he might even want the whole case against him dropped. So this may have legs. We'll have to see. We're all over the docket. Eric Adams, there hasn't been a lot in the docket, but I've noted that he said he's slowing down his schedule this week for various health tests. I don't want to overdo it, but it does seem, now many people are wondering how he's going to run, how he's going to, with the impending April 21st trial, how it'll play out. Other people have said that maybe Jessica Tisch, his new NYPD commissioner, might stand ready to move on. They've also noted that Jessica Rajkumar has shifted her eyes from the comptroller's race to the public advocate's race against, presumably, Jumaane Williams, unless he runs for mayor. So that's New York City politics for you. Meanwhile, in global and national politics, there was the showdown yesterday, quickly resolved apparently, between the Trump administration and Colombia. 2 flights turned back, a threat of sanctions under IEPA, there's some legal issues of whether IEPA could be used in that way, but in any case, Colombia said, no, we'll fly our own guys back on the presidential plane. Then the president of Colombia, Petro, put out a lengthy statement how he likes Walt Whitman, nothing wrong with that, and going to Los Barrios Negros in Washington. Then somebody responded with a picture of him with some kind of expensive shopping trip. So it's a classic culture war thing. You can check it out. Meanwhile, at the UN, that moved too fast for them. But they belatedly on Sunday got involved in the DRC thing. But here's something they didn't say. They expressed a lot of deep concern. France led the meeting. Now let's remember France's role in the Rwanda genocide. You could look it up. They supported the then Hutu government, very much so, and profited from it. It's a small country, but to the degree that they could. This was one of the worst examples of France-Afrique ever. And I think there's a total lack of self-consciousness, even on behalf of the UN, where the UN peacekeepers, by working with the FARDC, find themselves in some instances working with Hutu militia. So says Rwanda, of course. Now, all I want to say is that despite the billions of dollars from taxpayers the UN has spent in the DRC, I've been there. I've traveled with the Security Council covering it before. For this type of coverage, I was ousted. It's another failure. Antonio Guterres is an absolute joke, and the era of censorship of the UN must end. But for now, heading into court, Inner City Press to continue.